everyone! Welcome to a new series of fun and learning here in Teacher Vibal, now in its Season 2. I am Teacher Princess, your study buddy here in this creative and crafty artsy Friday.
Paintings, sculptures, and even some architectural artworks are just some of the essential parts of our history. These are some of the foundations of the different eras that existed before our very own era today.
For today's session, we will make a journey to the beginnings of the Western and classical art. Are you ready to go back in time and explore their creative world of art? Come on, let's start! The Parthenon in Greece and the Colosseum in Rome, Italy are just examples of Western and classical art that continue to live and exist in different eras. Every era that passed leaves a remarkable contribution in various forms of art that has shown a noticeable influence in the arts of the New World. In learning more about Western and classical arts, we will answer these questions. 1. How do we compare the styles of the countries that contributed in the Western and classical art? 2. What are the characteristics of the arts from Greeks and Romans? And lastly, 3. Who are the famous artists who were inspired by these Romance and Greek styles? Before we proceed with our lesson, let us get to know these important terms that can help you better understand this lesson. Era, classical arts, Greeks, Romans. Era. Era is a long and distinct period of history with a particular feature or characteristics. Classical art. The terms classic or classical came into the use in the 17th century to describe the arts and culture of the ancient civilization of Greece and Rome. Greeks. Greeks are the natives or inhabitants of ancient and modern Greece. Romans. A Roman is a person born, raised, or living in Rome, Italy, or is a citizen of the ancient Roman Empire. Greek and Roman art are both commonly called classical art. The three main areas of classical art are painting, architecture, and sculpture. Although there are similarities between Roman and Greek art, the differences are evident and show significant identification of both countries. Greeks shows the beauty of their god in their art. They also express their ideal form of physical strength and power. While for the Roman, art is more practical than is used for decoration or ornamentation. This shows their difference in their ideas. Greeks were interested in ideals, while Romans were interested in reality. Romans adapted many aspects of Greek culture when they conquered the areas of Europe under Greek control. Both ancient Greeks and ancient Romans had an enormous respect for human beings and what they can accomplish with their bodies and minds. That is why they are called humanists. These are evident with their artworks such as painting, sculptures, and architectures. But what are the unique characteristics of these masterpieces from Greek and the Roman arts? When it comes to paintings, Greek were most developed in the area of vase painting, while Romans created colorful painted murals, some of which are still intact. Painted portraits were also quite familiar in the Roman times. When it comes to sculpture, Greeks focuses on athleticism and mythology. Their sculptures represent their objects in an idealized fashion, making it unrealistic though beautiful. On the other hand, Romans shows historical events and real people in their sculptures. They became famous for their detailed busts. On architecture, the most obvious difference from Greek and Romans is the material used. The Greeks tend to use marble and the Romans use concrete. This is very evident from their famous temples such as the Parthenon from the Greeks and the Pantheon from the Romans. Now, Let's check what are the things that you have learned so far from these similarities and differences of Roman and Greek arts. I will show again some of the pictures and you just need to identify if it is from Roman or Greek art. Are you ready? Let's start. Great job, students! Now, how about we recognize some of the famous artists that were inspired by these styles of Greek and Roman arts? Are you excited to know them? Let's start.
First is Michelangelo di Lodovico Buonarroti Simoni. Michelangelo was an Italian sculptor, painter, architect, and poet. He was considered the greatest living artist in his lifetime and considered as one of the greatest artists of all time. Among his outstanding works as a sculptor are the Pieta and David. Both of these were sculpted before he even turned 30. Michelangelo shows himself and his audience of the divine quality and the significance of these figures using earthly and perfect beauty. Second is Leonardo di Ser Piero da Vinci. Leonardo da Vinci was a painter, architect, scientist, and mathematician. His works have been the inspiration for the popular movie and novel Da Vinci Code. His well-known works were The Last Supper, the most reproduced religious painting of all time, and the Mona Lisa, the most famous and most mysterious painting due to the different interpretation of Mona Lisa's smile. He is widely considered to be one of the greatest painters of all time because of his intellect, interest, talent, and his expression of humanist and classical values. Third is Raffaello Sanzio da Urbino, who is also known as Raphael. Raphael was an Italian painter and architect of the High Renaissance period. His work was admired for its clarity of form and ease of composition, and for its visual achievement of interpreting the divine and incorporating Christian doctrines. His famous works were the Sistine Madonna, the School of Athens, and the Transfiguration. The Transfiguration was Raphael's last painting on which he worked up to his death. Together with Michelangelo and Leonardo da Vinci, they formed the traditional trinity of the great masters of their period.
Now, let's go back to our questions earlier.
How do we compare the style of the countries that contributed to Western and classical art?
Greeks and Roman arts are both commonly called classical arts. To compare their ideal differences, Greeks were interested in ideals, while Romans were interested in reality.
What are the distinct characteristics of arts from the Greeks and Romans? When it comes to paintings, the Greeks were most developed in the area of vase painting, while the Romans created colorful painted murals.
When it comes to sculptures, Greek sculptures focuses on athleticism and mythology, while Romans show historical events and real people. On the architecture side, the Greeks tend to use marbles while the Romans use concrete.
Who are some of the famous artists that were inspired by these styles of Greek and Roman art?
Some of them are Michelangelo, Leonardo da Vinci, and Raphael. What a fun and informative session we had, students! You are fantastic! I hope you learned a lot today about beginnings of Western and classical arts. Don't forget to thumbs up and share this video to help students like you in learning more about arts. And make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel at Vibal TV. Once again, this is Teacher Princess. See you on our next Creative and Crafty Artsy Friday.